Atletico have gone out to Real Madrid in probably the most bizarre fashion I've ever seen in a penalty shootout. Should normally get retaken. That's our consensus, right?
Yeah.
We're saying that Julian Alvarez penalty should have been retaken. It didn't get retaken. Real Madrid then eventually go through, and we've just been told apparently the penalty law is going to get reviewed. Diego Simeone was fuming. Firstly, what's your take on this penalty situation? Let's have that first.
Yeah, I just don't think it's very fair. I feel like he didn't intentionally hit it twice. That should be retaken. In any instance where there's an infraction for a penalty, the penalty's retaken. And so I don't understand why it wasn't in this situation. If that's the current rules, those are the current rules. But I feel for Atletico Madrid. They're always thwarted by Real Madrid in the Champions League. They've got a great record recently in La Liga against Real Madrid. But when it comes to these high leverage moments, Real just find a way to get it done. And it wasn't the prettiest last night. And I think Atletico were the better team. I think after Vinny missed his penalty, that was the turning point in the game, right? I think if Vinny scores that, Real Madrid go on to win it within 90 minutes. But after he missed it, the momentum swung back in Atletico Madrid's favour and they looked like the team more likely to score. But it was a high quality game and this is what you want to see. And I suppose this is what UEFA thought of when they changed the Champions League format. I've never been a big fan of it. But we've seen the ties we've got in the round of 16. We've seen the mouth-watering ties we're going to get in the quarterfinals. And for Atletico Madrid, you feel for them. They're always the bridesmaids, never the bride. And yet again, it feels like in the Champions League, something's gone against them.
Quick question. I can't remember what happened with this, but remember when Perez backheeled a penalty to Henry or the other way around?
Yes.
Did that get retaken?
No, because basically the defender ran and took it away because he was taking
right?
the penalty.
Yeah, okay.
So by law, if the ball is double kicked, then the penalty, if it was in a match, if it wasn't in a shootout, the penalty wouldn't be retaken. It would just be cancelled out and the game would carry on. So I don't want to have a go at the officials. I spend a lot of my time having a go at officials. But on
Arsenal fan, you know.
On this occasion, yeah, as an Arsenal fan, it's my default setting. But look, I don't want to go after the officials. I want to go after the law because I think the law's wrong. And I think I would do something like what you see in tennis, where if you serve the ball and it clips the net on its way into the service box, it's a let rather than going down as a fault against you. So I think that's something that needs to be reviewed. But if you're an Atletico Madrid fan or Diego Simeone and you're reading that UEFA and FIFA are going to review that law now, it's not going to make it any better for you, is it, in terms of your feeling about the whole incident? But technically, it was the right decision. It's just incredibly frustrating.
I think also the fact that they used VAR in a penalty shootout, I think that's the first time that's happened in the Champions League, first time it's happened in one of the top 5 leagues. So I think Simeone was rightfully annoyed. But what I will say is, I think Madrid, especially after that penalty, like you said, were there for the taking. But Simeone, I don't think he loves taking the handbrake off. He's always concerned about what could happen. I watched that and I thought they had the ball out wide, I think 3 or 4 times. Soloth in the box. He's got a great record in the air and he's just a monster in the air. And they refused to cross the ball in and decided to start again. And I just think in those scenarios, I'm going, yes, it's Real Madrid. Yes, you're scared of him. But Mbappe and Vinny were off it. Jude was okay, but not wonderful. Their best tackle was probably Brahim Diaz. They were doing nothing on the counter. That was the day. That was the moment. You can't then complain that it goes to penalties and you lose.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think you're always going to be wary of the players that Madrid have, as you mentioned, on the counter-attack especially. That's kind of playing into their hands. And for Atletico, it must have been quite difficult mentally because they are a team that play in a very certain way. Now, I don't think they're actually generally as defensively minded as people like to make out. I think Simeone's got that reputation because of what they've done in Europe when they've tried to narrow the gap between themselves and some of the better sides. So I do think that reputation at times is a little bit unfair. Could they have done a little bit more to try and win it? I guess you could, but I think when the tie's on a knife edge like that, because if you go back 2-3 years ago when we had the away goal rule, Atletico were going through. Yeah. So again, does that speak to the kind of mindset change that players and managers are having to go through with the rules constantly changing and the formats constantly changing in this competition? I don't know. I think they could have gone for it a little bit more. I think they could have let the handbrake off a little bit more, but at the same time, it's much easier said than done when you're facing a side like Real Madrid.
And when you're, if you ask Simeone before the game, okay, so you're 2-1 down the aggregate, we'll give you a penalty shootout right now. We're shaking your hand and said, yes, take me to the penalty shootout. So I think it was the case of...
Context is so important.
Context is
Modric
key.
Played in midfield.
Yeah.
Mendy came off injured. Valverde's playing a right back, although he's an outstanding right back, but he's not a right back.
Yeah.
Front three not really playing very well. I think at 70 minutes they missed the penalty, and you've got the Wanda behind you. I think at that point, if it's my team, I'm going try and kill them at least a little bit. Instead, he was like, if the moment comes, play the right pass. Otherwise, we're going to wait for Angel Correa to try and... He came off the bench and had that little flick and should have definitely passed it.
Yes.
And if he gets that right, Symeoune's correct. But how many times is that happening against Madrid? And you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
There's a little brother syndrome thing there. There's an inferiority complex there where they understand who they're coming up against. It's Real Madrid. The second leg being at the Wonder, though, is the benefit that they had. If the second leg was at the Bernabeu, then obviously we think the game goes in a different way. But the fact that they were at home, they had the opportunity in 90 minutes and 120 minutes to win the game. I just feel like it's just a story of Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. It's going to take something monumental for them to get over the line, especially when they come up against Real Madrid, which seems like every single season.
Yeah.
And I want to say one thing, though. We talked about the penalty shootout. Jan Oblak has, for the last decade, been considered one of the best keepers in the world. But when it comes to penalty shootouts, I don't trust him. I don't trust him. I feel like there's been multiple occasions with Atletico in the Champions League where he's just not come to the fore. And I think he could have saved that really good penalty. That was not a great penalty. He should have saved it. And so there's always moments in the Champions League, and that's what Real Madrid is so good at, capitalising on the moments. And they seem to get very fortuitous, but it's not luck. It happens every single season. And so they found a way to sneak through. I think the shine has been taken off them a little bit. I think people are now looking at them a little bit more vulnerable, and that serves Arsenal well in the next round. But this is a Real Madrid side that have the know-how. And one thing I will say is that I don't think we'll see Vinicius Junior have a game as bad as that again in the Champions League.
There's also Mbappe had an awful game.
Yeah.
But there's obviously a lot. We spoke in a Liverpool PSG video, which you should go watch, about Salah's Ballon d'Or chances. Obviously, if Madrid win the Champions League, then Vinicius or probably Mbappe would be in for the run-in. Do you think if they do win it, Mbappe is in for the run-in?
He's got to be. I think there's been this kind of false narrative this season that he's not really done it at Real Madrid. The numbers say otherwise, and certainly the eye test in the games I've watched, he looks like he's slotted right in. People got to remember that he played a lot from the left-hand side in recent years at PSG. He's not doing that for Real Madrid at the minute. He's playing in a more central role. So there was always going to be that adaptation period. But he's got as good a shot as anybody else. Him, Vinicius. Just reverting back to the shootout and on the penalties thing about Jan Oblak, I kind of agree with you that he needed to do better, but I don't think there's always a direct correlation between the best goalkeepers and the best goalkeepers in a penalty shootout scenario. I mean, I know we've talked Liverpool PSG already, but Donnarumma, I don't trust him one bit when I'm watching him play across 90 minutes. But in a shootout, you know there's something about him, not just his size. It's about how he sort of winds people up, how he kind of wins that mental battle as well. So, yeah, Jan Oblak's been one of the most reliable goalkeepers over the last decade, as you said, but not quite a penalty goalkeeper, which is a shame for Atleti on the night.